Instagram, a company with only 13 employees, bought today by Facebook for $1 billion.
Instagram came out of wanting to be my own boss. I was like, you know what? I want to work for myself. I want to work on ideas. I really hope I'm going to make money.
Let's talk about 700 million monthly users. You guys set out to do this 6.5 years ago.
The first day we had 25,000 people sign up, and then it just started. It just it never stopped. It just kept going and going and going, and this is gonna be something.
Instagram's story begins and ends with Mark Zuckerberg. When Facebook was only available on a few college campuses, Mark hired a guy named Kevin Systrom to create a photo sharing feature for Facebook's websites.
I was a kid that just wanted to play with computers, and the second I learned that you could program them to do things, I got hooked. I got the idea of writing programs to then do things and then have those things be useful was an idea that it caught on very quickly.
Kevin Systrom was flattered, but turned down the offer after a mentor advised him that Facebook would be a passing fad.
I remember meeting one of my mentors and I was like, hey, should I do this Facebook thing? And I remember the person saying, it's a fad.
Instead, Kevin traveled to Italy to pursue one of his interests, photography. On the course, he learned a lot that would later play a key role in the creation of Instagram. However, when Kevin first returned from Italy, he landed an internship at Audio, which would later become Twitter. During his internship, Kevin met Jack Dorsey, who told him that Twitter was going to be huge, but Kevin didn't see the potential and left the company. Kevin hadn't realized it yet, but he just missed out on joining both Facebook and Twitter in their early stages, which meant he'd passed up 2 opportunities to get rich and be a part of massive social media companies. But that didn't matter because Kevin was going to make his own. He began learning a new skill, creating mobile apps, and within a year had created the app Bourbon, named after the whiskey he enjoyed drinking. The app had nothing to do with the drink, so the name was quite misleading. People could use the app to tell others where they were or where they were going. A checking app that allows people to post pictures of where they went and earn virtual prizes the more times they go out. If that sounds a little confusing, it's because it was for everyone else. Bourbon was an odd concoction of various characteristics with an unappealing brown and red design. And a mobile website that didn't even work that well. However, after creating Bourbon, Kevin went to a party attended by many wealthy investors and convinced one of them to invest $50,000 in his new app.
I went to a bar where a bunch of investors were getting together, and I kind of mingled around the room, and people were kind of showing their prototypes on their phones to different investors. And I showed it to this one investor. His name's Steve Anderson, who was one of our first investors.
When another investment firm heard about this, they decided to put in $250,000, which prompted the original investor to increase their stake to $250,000 as well. Kevin's brand new company suddenly had a $500,000 investment. Kevin looked for a co-founder to help him now that he had many people to work with, and recruited one of Bourbon's earliest users, Mike Krieger, whom he knew from back at Stanford.
I got excited enough that I think I came up with Kevin. I was like, look, if you ever do this for real, let's have a conversation. And I think that first meeting we had about it, actually, I was like, count me interested. I'm excited enough to do it. And you know how the cliche of your life flashing before your eyes, my future flashed before my eyes for talking to Kevin right then.
Our first meeting was, where was it? Was it at that breakfast place?
Yep, Just For You Cafe.
Yeah, we Just For You Cafe is now getting free advertising.
However, even though Kevin now had a business partner and funding from investors, there was one big problem. Bourbon just wasn't that popular. They had around 100 users and were really struggling to grow.
We were both kind of burned out. We had decided that Bourbon wasn't going to do anything. We had, $495,000 left in the bank because $5,000 to buy a couple of computers, right?
So Kevin decided to go and talk to their active users to see what they liked most about the app. It turned out, most of them didn't even care about the check-in features or the virtual prizes, but they loved the photo sharing aspect. The key question Kevin asked himself was, what problem are we solving? He then realized that even though there were other photo apps out there was no good solution for posting great photos to lots of friends all at once.
the best thing for any entrepreneur is failure. And for us, it was the lack of momentum. I mentioned we got to about 100 users using this app. Don't ask why people don't use your startup. Ask why the people who continue to use your startup keep using it. And when we looked at our user base, our whole 100 people, each of them loved the photo aspect.
The way we set ourselves apart from the crowd was focusing on problems. So many entrepreneurs today are technology in search of a problem, not the other way around.
If stuff doesn't exist and it's a problem that can be solved, aka like the experience sucks, then that's what you should go do. There were a lot of check-in apps, there were a lot of planners and meetup things and group chat things, but there was no solution for posting great photos to like lots of friends all at once.
He told his co-founder that he thought they should pivot Bourbon, remove all the confusing features, and focus solely on doing one thing really well, photography. His co-founder had only recently started the job, so he was a little nervous about the fact that they were completely overhauling everything, especially since he had just left his previous job to work on this business. Kevin, on the other hand, was adamant, and they renamed their app Instagram. A mashup of the words instant and telegram. Kevin was excited about the potential of their photo app after building a first prototype and showing it to his girlfriend. But she said she probably wouldn't use it as her photos weren't as good as most of their friends. Kevin explained the reason their photos looked so nice was simply that they apply a filter over the top of them, to which Kevin's girlfriend said, "Oh, you should add filters to your app then."
And I was like, oh, so you're excited about this new app we're building? We haven't called it Instagram yet. She was like, yeah, but I don't think I'm going to use it because my photos aren't that good. I was like, okay, well, why don't you think your photos are good? And she's like, well, all your friends, you post these amazing photos and they're all like filtered and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's because they use filters. And she goes, oh, well, you should probably add filters. And we came back from that walk. I went straight to the room and I just like got on my laptop and I made the first filter, which was X Pro 2.
That simple comment would end up playing a pivotal role in Instagram's success. Kevin realized that even though other filter apps already existed, all they did was edit the photos. They didn't have their own community to share those pictures, and they didn't make it easy to post those pictures on other social media platforms. Instagram would solve that problem. Kevin's photography experience came in extremely handy here, as using Photoshop, he was able to create some filters that people could add to their own photos and immediately make them look more professional. Kevin and his co-founder Mike spent just 8 frantic weeks working on this app and then launched Instagram to the public on October 6, 2010. But even in Kevin's wildest fantasies, he couldn't have predicted what was about to happen next. The first day Instagram launched on the App Store, it gained 25,000 users. Within a month, it had over 1 million users. The initial success was compounded by several factors. Firstly, Instagram made it very easy for people to share their filtered photos on other social media like Facebook and Twitter. And whenever they did, it helped introduce new people to Instagram. Everyone wanted their photos to look like art, and Instagram made that easy. Secondly, Instagram's timing was perfect. The iPhone 4 had just launched with a new and improved camera. Everyone was using their smartphones more, and Instagram was the best mobile-first photography app thanks to Kevin's decision to narrow their focus to just photos. And thirdly, Instagram quoted designers and photographers with high follow accounts on other platforms to join Instagram early on, in order to set the right artistic tone for the app. As a result of all this, Instagram went viral. However, because Kevin hadn't been prepared for Instagram to catch on this quickly, their servers kept crashing from all the new users. Kevin grew increasingly stressed as Instagram repeatedly went down. The problem got even worse when celebrities started joining the app. One of the earliest was Justin Bieber, and every time he posted, a new flood of teenage girls would join Instagram and the servers would become overloaded. The vast number of photos being posted presented other problems too, like how are they supposed to moderate them all and deal with all the harassment and abuse. Instagram hit 2 million users when they only had 4 employees, which includes the founders Kevin and Mike, and they were all working together in the same small room. The growth was incredibly exciting, but it was overwhelming. And while they did eventually grow the Instagram team to 13 people by 2012, even that was an extremely low number of employees given how popular the app had become. The irony was, for the first couple of years, Instagram was making no money at all as they hadn't yet developed an ad system. They were relying solely on money from investors to fund their growth. But suddenly, it looked like none of that mattered because Twitter wanted to buy Instagram. The Twitter CEO took Kevin out for a meal to wine and dine him, and he felt it was a real possibility Twitter could acquire Instagram. Which is why Twitter were left utterly shocked at what Kevin did next. Mark Zuckerberg called Kevin and got straight to the point saying, "I've thought about it and I want to buy your company." Zuckerberg offered $1 billion and said he felt Facebook would take Instagram to a higher level by letting them use Facebook's resources.
If you're going to sell your company, the idea is to sell your company to a company that's going to be a rocket ship. And I remember Mike and I talking about, like, do we believe that by being part of this larger company, Instagram can reach an even higher potential even more quickly?
You've closed the Instagram acquisition.
Yeah,
Can you talk about it now? Why did you do it, and what are you going to do with it?
Oh, yeah. So Instagram is great, right? I mean, they're this super talented group of engineers. They're building this amazing product. They just crossed 100 million registered users, and they're killing it. And the history of how this thing came together is really interesting, right? So the way that I got to know Kevin is they started off building on top of our platform, right? I mean, they had just a great open graph integration that made it so that you can take pictures with Instagram and you can share them to Facebook. And it's really first class, right? So sharing a picture from Instagram, it basically appears exactly the same as if you shared a photo on Facebook. So it's great. They did a really good job with that. And one of the things that I like to do is all of our big developers, I just like to reach out to them and get to know them personally, partially because I'm personally just really interested in entrepreneurship and helping other entrepreneurs, but also I just want to get to know the people who are doing great stuff on top of our platform. So I spent a lot of time with Kevin, and over the course of our discussions, we built this roadmap of all these things that we can do together. But then this tension started, which was, they were starting to get a lot of distribution from Facebook, and from them there was this question of, how much do they want to bet on just one company providing a huge amount of their distribution, right? So that became the strategic question for them. And on the flip side for us, there's this question of how much do we prioritize these things, right? So we have this list of cool things that we could do, but then there's this question of, okay, well, we can help them grow, but this might just be specific for them, but without the value accruing to us, we'll probably get to these things more slowly than ideally we would want to. So eventually I just brought up the idea to Kevin, hey, maybe we should just join and become one company, and we can do a lot of these things really quickly, and then we decided to do it. So that's basically the game plan, is we're going to execute on the features that we decided earlier. Our mission around Instagram is we think Instagram is amazing, and we want to help it grow to hundreds of millions of users. We want to help them out with whatever we can, but we have no agenda in terms of making them go into our infrastructure or something. And a lot of times companies force companies that they're integrating to do stuff like that. I think it's primarily a waste of time. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to just try to do the things that we would have done if they were an open graph partner, but now we can prioritize them more highly. And they can do a lot of them directly because they have access to our code directly.
But Mark knew exactly what Kevin really wanted and said that Instagram would remain independent from Facebook so Kevin could keep running everything himself without interference. To the shock of many people, including Instagram's employees, Kevin accepted. He knew Facebook could help Instagram grow even faster and that they would benefit from Facebook's infrastructure and experience, like being able to use Facebook servers and moderation tools. Plus, Kevin knew that if he didn't sell, Facebook would try to crush Instagram instead. So being on the same team backed by Facebook's huge wealth seemed like a win-win. The acquisition happened in 2012, and back then nobody had ever paid $1 billion for a mobile app before, especially not for an app that was only 18 months old and had literally no business model. Instagram wasn't making any money still, so most people thought it was absurd Facebook was buying it for $1 billion. By 2019, Instagram was generating over $24 billion in revenue per year, around 30% of Facebook's total revenue. Plus, it also meant that the top alternative to Facebook was now owned by Facebook. It was a genius move, but not everyone liked the deal. Many users didn't want Facebook having yet more user data given the poor track record with privacy. And some thought Facebook couldn't be trusted to keep their apps completely separate like they promised. In fact, when the deal was announced, governments around the world investigated whether Facebook buying Instagram gave them a monopoly on social media. At the time, they let the acquisition go through without any issue. But years later, analysts would say that allowing the acquisition of Instagram was one of the greatest regulatory failures of the decade. Even Chris Hughes, one of the co-founders of Facebook, called for the deal to be undone, saying Mark's power is unprecedented and un-America. But for Instagram's small team of 13 people after the acquisition, it was time to celebrate. And Kevin took them for a big party in Las Vegas, but the celebrations wouldn't last that long, as it soon became clear that Instagram's employees wouldn't be getting rich themselves. They were offered jobs by Facebook to continue working on Instagram, but there was no big personal payout for them. The only people cashing in would be the co-founders Kevin and Mike. That would soon begin to cause resentment as the Instagram team watched on as Kevin bought an expensive new car, a new Rolex watch, and started getting all kinds of packages delivered to the office. A reminder that while he'd become extremely wealthy from the sale of Instagram, the employees had not. Many Instagrammers were unaware that Facebook owned the app. And, for the initial years after the acquisition, Facebook allowed Kevin to run it completely independently, as agreed. Zuckerberg also requested that Kevin put in a good word for him with the founders of WhatsApp, who were hesitant to sell their app to Facebook. Zuckerberg wanted Kevin to persuade him that Facebook wasn't interfering, and for the most part, he was right. But as time passed, Facebook became slightly more involved in Instagram. Zuckerberg wanted Instagram to send out more push notifications and email alerts to help boost engagement, but Kevin objected because it would be an annoyance for users. Then there was a bigger dispute about advertising. From a business standpoint, Zuckerberg wanted to integrate Facebook's existing ad system on Instagram because Facebook had an extremely profitable ad infrastructure that they'd been using for years. Facebook anticipated that it would be very simple to implement this for Instagram as well, and that it would immediately begin making millions of dollars. Kevin, on the other hand, was opposed to the idea because it could harm Instagram's brand and user experience because the ads were mostly unvetted and often looked corny. Zuckerberg finalized the decision, and Instagram integrated Facebook's ad system, allowing anyone to buy ads on Instagram. It served as a reminder to Kevin that while he was still the CEO of Instagram, he was not the boss. The most serious fallout would occur when Zuckerberg began to believe that Instagram was suffocating Facebook's growth as Facebook was still Mark's special one. Because of Zuckerberg's decision, tensions began to rise. So Kevin took a vacation, which he then extended again and again. When he came back, he declared his resignation, as did his co-founder Mike. Instagram employees thought they were joking, but they were both exiting. After the Instagram pioneers left, their app was rebranded as Instagram from Facebook. While everyone has different opinions on whether Instagram is beneficial for society or not, one thing is undeniable. It's an exceptional business success story. What began as a perplexing app called Bourbon has become a hugely influential part of so many people's lives. There's a clear lesson in there about listening to your users and pivoting if something doesn't work. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Financial Literacy.